Yeah, so we haven't done any scarcity tactics. I've tried it early on and it didn't really work for us. If, we did like a special package or discounted eval, anything like that. So I don't do that at all in my workshops now. And I also don't do them for free anymore either.
The
That
workshop
made
itself?
what's that?
The workshop itself is
Correct.
paid? Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So we charge like anywhere from $10 to $20 a workshop, depending what we're doing. So it's still a pretty small amount, but my take on it, whenever we've done free ones, we get all these people signed up and they don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Or they don't convert very well. And so I'm like, if you can't even spend $10 on a workshop, you're probably not going to spend $1,000 with me for PT.
Yeah. Great point.
So that has also helped. When I close the workshop and have them fill out that form, I also treat it as like a feedback form. Give me feedback on the workshop, what you liked, didn't like, ways that I can improve it so that it's not just so salesy. And then I'll say, if you're ready, you want to book that consult. I always have a staff person there. They can schedule you right away and make sure you can get the, appointment times that you want, because our schedule does book up, which is true, but that might be a somewhat scarcity.
A little bit of a scarcity then, yeah.
And then, so if they don't book that night, we put them into an automated sequence. And I'd have to look back at like how far out it takes them, but it's kind of like maybe every 3 days. And then it might space out a little bit more after like a week or two. But we'll send them like a blog post or like a testimonial. We'll send a couple emails like just flat out saying, hey, do you want to book your free consults, et cetera, et cetera. So trying to give more content within that follow-up sequence.
Okay. So not just calls to action. I'm sure there's a CTA in each one, but a little bit more still value forward, build the relationship with, just good information for that particular person.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so most who don't sign up will still sign up via the emails. Do you guys do phone calls to each person?
We do phone calls to the workshop people. We'll do like a follow-up phone call like a week after to schedule. I feel like most people probably convert off of our emails versus our phone calls, but I think it still helps to have that other touch point.
For sure. And then if those are automated emails, do y'all have a way where, let's say someone, books 3 days later on that first email they get, to take them out of the sequence for the automated emails, but also so that your staff members don't call and say, hey, I was wondering if you want to book. How does that work logistically?
Yeah, so we actually have a full checklist. So whenever someone schedules an appointment, because we have several like automated follow-up sequences depending like what avenues are coming in from. And so whenever someone books, that's a point on the checklist to like basically pull them from whatever like follow-up sequence they're in. And then we put them into like a new PT automated sequence.
Kind of the new onboarding series of emails. What system are you guys using for that?
We do MailChimp.
Wow. So that's interesting. So I didn't know MailChimp had that level of capability where you could have multiple sequences. Do they have to be all kind of started either, if they're not like started by the download of a like a lead magnet on your website, do they have to be manually started? Otherwise, like you're inputting, here's our 10 people from the workshop last night. I'm putting them in and I'm pushing go on the campaign.
Yeah. So, you can do either. So we've been tweaking how we do our workshop like sign up lately because we used to pretty much just like advertise on Facebook and fill our workshop up. And I don't know, like with so many changes with Facebook, like it hasn't been as successful. So we're kind of changing it. And now what we're doing is like a landing page for them to sign up on. And that will automatically put them into a MailChimp campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have like a short 3 email pre-workshop series.
Great.
And then we basically just move them from there into like the workshop follow-up that we already have established. So
I'm
we do like the paid version of MailChimp, if that makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think you can do autoresponders, automated emails without paying.
No.
So anyways, but I'm glad to hear that too. And this is just, there's so many actionable points from this particular topic that you've brought up that I'm hoping everyone can take away. And that was just another one of, just because someone signed up doesn't mean they're highly likely to come. Right. And just because it's paid doesn't mean they're highly likely to come. Having some touch points ahead of time to start to build that relationship and get them pre-framed and knowing what they're, knowing about you and your team and what to expect when they get there and get them excited about it can make a huge difference, in attendance and obviously then your potential for revenue. So you guys are kicking butt on that. I know we've kind of gone a ways into this one and I'm loving the conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Right.
So if you're okay with it, maybe just a few other things outside of workshops, which have clearly been awesome for you guys. What are there other areas where you're like, man, I'm so glad we're doing XYZ form of marketing. And because if we didn't, we wouldn't be where we're at.
Yeah. I haven't really spent I haven't invested like a ton of money into marketing. Like that's something that I want to start doing. That's actually on my list of things here for the end of the year, to start running ads for like a lead magnet. It's just something I haven't done a ton of. But the one thing that I have had a lot of success with is there's a Milwaukee Moms blog. It's a franchise. And so I know they're like nationwide. It's like, I think they're getting like rebranded. But so there's one in our area and they do like all different articles, but then they also put out like different guides, like your guide to fall or something, or like, I don't know, the best pumpkin patches in Milwaukee area, just things like that. And they do host an event once a year geared all around like pregnancy and postpartum. So we do that event, and that's a pretty big one for us. And we've also done some partnerships with them where like probably the most recent one was I actually bartered with the owner and did pelvic floor PT with her. And she then in turn like wrote about it, documented it.
Cool.
That was huge. I like can't stress how much growth we saw from that. Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. That took us to like a whole nother level.
That's awesome. So influencer marketing, essentially.
Yeah.
Finding someone who has an audience of your ideal patients and, getting them in for free in exchange for talking about it. That's cool. I haven't heard a lot of my guests or students go deeply into that. And so I'm excited to hear that, that success story there. So as she was kind of writing about it, was it just like having her link to the website and then the phone started ringing and they're like, we read this thing, or did y'all have some sort of like a lead capture component that was on site where they were doing these blogs?
So she actually did like weekly, or well, every time she came for PT, she would do like an Instagram story update.
Cool.
And a couple times she even did like polls on stories to get like questions and stuff like that. And she would have me answer them.
Nice.
And so then at the end, so we had like bartered 6 PT visits. And then she actually like stayed on for another 6 because she really needed it. And I mean, it was crazy. Like she was to the point like like couldn't go to Target without issues, or pretty significant. And so she actually wrote about that, even like how she found it so valuable that she's like investing her own money. Everything was disclosed on the front end that like, yes, this is sponsored. Yeah. But then after that, she wrote up a whole article about her experience and how it helped her. And there was like a call to action within that. But I mean, even just from her posting on stories, we had a lot of people that like had been following us and were kind of on the fence, hadn't reached out at all. And then they started to seeing her stories. And so it was like this trickle, like it wasn't just all at once, but it was just kind of this trickle down effect of people actually seeing someone like going through it. And it gave them that little push to like make that first contact.
Yeah, I think that's huge whether it's an influencer, your own personal, you or your staff, but just those personal stories are highlighting the personal stories of, people that are, it's not just about the successful result, but like I couldn't even go to Target because of this,
Right.
Those kinds of things are what get people saying, that's me and this person, it just grabs them in that emotional way. And that's how we make decisions. So that's
right.
huge when you can compel any of your clients, to talk about those things, and which is obviously a bigger challenge for people in your niche, in practice in your niche where things are so personal.
Right.
And they're getting on, if they're going to do a Google review and their face is there and it's like, what are they? So kudos for being able to, really capitalize on influencer marketing in a very sensitive niche. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there was something else I wanted to ask if you have just a few more minutes.
Yeah. No, I'm good on time.
I think what we might end up doing here as we go is just doing a two-parter, kind of the front end story and then the marketing stuff. But so I saw that you've started a podcast. I think I just clicked around your website a little bit.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, is it brand new or has it been out for a while or?
No, it's brand new. It actually launches October 22nd. So
okay, so it hasn't
when people are listening.
Okay, that's exciting. Okay.
Yeah. So I have some
after that, but yeah, tell us about the podcast.
Yeah. So I obviously like I listen to tons of podcasts, including this one. And it was something that I wanted to do because I feel like, especially in women's health, these topics they're not talked about. And so many people, they have no idea. Like, I can't tell you how many people come in the office and they're like, I had no idea there was something I could do to stop peeing my pants. Or like, it's crazy. So I wanted to do something to try to get that education out there, but then also really try to establish ourselves as like the expert in women's health in this area. Yeah. So, I ventured into podcasting, which was like a whole new experience.
It is a new thing, man.
Oh my gosh, so much stuff. But yeah, we have like several interviews recorded already right now, and
interviews of other practitioners or just you doing monologue or?
Yeah, so the main bulk of the podcast will be interviewing other like more local people involved in women's health. So like I have a midwife, a personal trainer that just does like mommy and me exercise classes. We have like a sex therapist coming on. So just kind of the whole range of women's health and trying to keep it local if I can. Also from like a business standpoint, trying to build those relationships with those people, I think is important as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just felt like it was something I had to do to really try to kind of be viewed a little more like as the expert. So that's kind of my goal. I want to be known as like the place in Milwaukee to go for women's health.
That's fantastic. I'm sure that that'll help. I, launched the Active Austin podcast, and I had to put it on the shelf with everything going on with the kids. But but that just in the small number of interviews I did, and connecting, it's just amazing the doors that'll open when you're saying, hey, I've got a podcast, I'd like to feature you as an expert, versus, hey, can I come get 5 minutes of your time, sir, please?
That's a great point.
It's totally different. And what I found was that I didn't expect this. I thought that I would, over time, slowly but surely, start to make a name for the podcast and for the practice, and that it would be bringing in listeners, right?
Okay.
That was my original thought. But what I found was that more immediately, my interviewees were becoming not just the referral sources, but patients themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really interesting. How, everyone's got something going on, right? Orthopedic wise, or not everyone, but most. And so it became one of those things where, after spending that time, just from an interview, you develop kind of a relationship with them enough to where they're like, got this shoulder thing. I was like, yeah, man, come on in. Let's do it. Let's cool. Fix it up. So, aside from, just getting a listenership that, and just a branding kind of exercise in general, which I think it'll serve really nicely for you, is that, the referral sources, and then just patients that or interviewees that become patients themselves. You might see that happening too. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And it's fun to interview people. I love this part of both my businesses. So, all right. Well, we have gone a good ways, and I really appreciate you hanging in there, even with some tech difficulties midway through. Hopefully no one will notice with clever editing. And we'll see. Maybe this we'll split this up into two parts anyhow, just given the length. But I feel like I definitely want to kind of hop back on in the future and get even more of the story and hear how things continue to grow, because I'm sure they will. But were there any other things that maybe we didn't talk about, or pieces of advice that you'd like to leave with listeners who maybe were are in the situation you were in years ago when you decided, I'm going to go ahead and do this thing? What would you like to pass on as we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think the thing that helped me that I didn't mention early on is when I was getting ready to make the jump into the business full time and get the bigger space, do the build out, all of that, I actually worked with a score mentor, and I'm not sure if you guys, I'm assuming they're nationwide, but I did that to get help with understanding the financials and can we afford this? What do we need to do to make this happen? And that was super helpful for me. And it's not to discount, I know there's so many, the PTs kind of now getting into the consulting like you included, and that I think is by far absolutely valuable. But sometimes when you're just starting out, it's, I think, really difficult to make such a large investment, or maybe you're not at a point that even makes sense yet. And the score mentor really helped me understand and learn how to run the business end of things. And so that's something that I think is really helpful and valuable as well, and kind of has its place in everything too, as an option of I don't know, it helps me to have someone else look at my numbers and say, oh yeah, this is totally doable, because I'm always the one that's there's no way, we can't do this, this is too much money, or I'm always so risk adverse. So I would recommend them if you're like me and afraid to take that step.
Yeah. And is SCORE part of Small Business Administration or associated with in some way? I've been hearing about SCORE mentorship for a long time. It's free, right? It's in most cases. Yeah.
So it's retired CEOs, entrepreneurs, they volunteer their time.
That's so
and
cool.
You get partnered up with a mentor. And I have heard from some people you have to find the right mentor. Mine right off the bat, we clicked, it was good. but I actually kind of outgrew her. So once I got into the space that like we're in now, then it was more of a fact of like, okay, how do I scale?
Mm-hmm.
And she was kind of really against the whole notion of like cash-based PT, and really didn't think it was going to work, along with like so many other people I talked to. And my take was, my take was always like, well, it's easier to like start this way and have to take insurance if it doesn't work than like go the opposite route. And I'm like, no, there's all these other people doing it. Like, it can totally work. So her and I kind of like, I kind of outgrew it, if you will, because it just, what I needed help with at that point, she just couldn't give to me.
Yeah. Well, good for you for pushing forward, even with a quote unquote business mentor, saying that it wasn't possible when it's possible from, all the guests on podcasts like this, and what you see, it's happening everywhere. So all right. Well, that's great parting advice. I think especially for, budding practice owners, is to utilize everything you can, whether paid or free, getting as much valuable information as you can in any form that you can, and taking action on it, which you clearly have done, even in the midst of some crazy instances along the way. So I'm just blown away and super excited to share your story with the audience. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely have a follow-up interview here in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jarod. I had a great time.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Cash-Based Practice Podcast. If you liked what you heard here today, we have some extremely important things we want to send you. First, a quick start guide to cash-based physical therapy and Medicare. This free ebook will provide the primary rules and regulations surrounding this confusing but important topic. Secondly, we want to share with you the 5 characteristics common to all successful cash-based practices. Find out the vital things Jarod has learned from years of interviewing cash practice owners and running his own successful cash practice. As one of our listeners, we want to give you all this information absolutely free. You can get it right now by going to drjarodcarter.com/success. Again, that's drjarodcarter.com/success. Go there now to get your copies, and we'll see you next time.